Hello, everyone. Welcome to our last day of the training Marine Data for Sustainable Development, Fair Care and Trust. I'm Dina Parkina from the European Global Ocean Observing System, and I'm organizing this training with a great team, a powerhouse, with Flanders Marine Institute's Juana Jimenez and Alice Paul, and with our consultant in Eurogoose, Ana Vittoria Teresa, who has been really behind the scenes on all the program elements. And thanks a lot for that once again. So here it is, our fourth day. We have an exciting program ahead of us. We've had so far a lot of people joining. On the first day was the largest day. We had around 220 to 230 people. Yesterday, we had 180. So we will see how the numbers will be growing now. We're approaching 100, but not yet. And we have 2 interesting hours ahead of us. I would like to remind you a few points about the EU Ocean Coalition, because this training wouldn't be possible without our collaboration with the EU Ocean Coalition, which is a large-scale initiative which connects stakeholders, youth and schools and education with the concept of ocean literacy and ocean care, ocean knowledge, and all of those things we're discussing in this training today through the prism of marine data specifically. You can scan this QR code and you will discover how to join the coalition, how to learn about them, how to participate in the calls for collective action or make EU Blue Awards or campaigns for youth advocates and Blue Schools. I invite you to do that. This is really a very interesting initiative. I also want to point out, yesterday we talked a lot, those of you who were here yesterday, we talked a lot about the ocean literacy and that marine data is only as good as the use of this data. And one of big area of use of the data is through education, engagement, and dialogue with people who are not marine scientists, but who actually benefit from marine science and who should also help us care for the marine environment. So here we have some resources in Eurogoose with our Ocean Literacy Working Group and Scientists for Ocean Literacy Project in the UN Ocean Decade. You can scan the code to access the resources that we have that were developed by scientists for engaging with children, educators, and so on and so forth on ocean. And a final reminder, we have Eurogoose conference coming up in May. This is going to be an event addressing all elements of marine value and marine knowledge cycle, from observations, data collection to modeling, forecasting, use of data. We will also have elements of communication, ocean literacy in this context, ocean observing governance, ocean governance, and of course, fair care and trust will be quite critical element of those discussions. Before I pass over to my co-moderator today, Ana Vittoria Teresa de Magalhães, I made it. I would like to remind you about the program. So after the welcome, Ana Vittoria will then tell us a few words about what we have achieved in this last 3 days. What are the key points we've addressed? Then we will hear from DCO on ocean data sharing, Ocean Decade initiative, uniting different data assets and systems in a joint federated system, which can be really producing impact. And we will be looking at how to make impact out of marine data. Then we will hear about UN BBNJ treaty and the Clearing-House Mechanism, which is an important initiative which will help integrate marine knowledge into governance and how we govern our interactions and manage our decisions on marine biodiversity, but not only. We will hear about bathymetry studies with Seabed 2030, Global Fishing Watch, and then we will close with Juana Jimenez from Flanders Marine Institute, co-organizer here, with some closing remarks. and we will tell you how to also obtain the certificate of participation if you wish to have one for your studies or for your work. So without further ado, I will offer the stage now to Anna Vitoria to proceed with the recap of the past days.
Thank you so much, Dina. I will now share my screen with you. So during this week, we had great speakers that have shown us the importance of data in many different instances, right? We have discussed the importance of data to especially process like policies, how it feeds directives, for example, in the European area, such as the Marine Strategy Framework Directive, the Marine Spatial Planning Directive, but also blue economy processes. We also heard the importance of data management plans. So what we do with our data during, prior, and also after our research, the need for performing quality checks, backups, and keep our data safe and organized. Also, we heard that fair, care, and trust are to be applied, they need a change of behavior. We also must share data openly, respectfully, and responsibly. So we are also data caretakers. We heard, 2 days ago from Hugo about the importance of equity. So we know that countries, they face different scenarios regarding ocean science. So avoiding parachute science is urgent and needed, and including local researchers in papers and also in the full research process is a must. We also saw yesterday that it's important to keep in mind that data will support the improvement of blue economy sectors. Fisheries data, for example, can improve the quality of fishing practices, reduce potential conflicts, and also support informed policymaking. It also will ensure that what is being fished meets sustainability targets and quality standards. Data confidentiality and also ownership was part of our discussions. I took the example of fisheries again. Yesterday we heard from Lancelot that fishers, in the case of the project that he's dealing, have the right, are the rightful owners of their data. So building trust with the actors that we want to engage is part of the process, building trust with communities as well. And this process also takes time. So we cannot believe that the trust will happen immediately. This is also something that we need to cultivate with patience. Data reveals also how lucrative a sector can be. This also makes the blue economy a more predictable and more better manageable sector to invest, but also to work. We saw from yesterday's discussion as well the importance of data visualization and communication. We saw that it's important when communicating to different target groups, also using ocean literacy initiatives to do that, to define the right target audience that we want to reach. Always begin with a clear understanding of the message that we want to pass and who we want to talk. We also saw that it's important to do things in collaboration. So as scientists, we don't need to create things by ourselves, but we can partner with illustrators, with designers, ocean literacy experts, and other creative minds to translate data and to create engaging materials that will bring our message to a wider public. We understood that it's important to use visuals to tell a story. So graphs and infographics, they just should not place data randomly, but they should communicate a message. And we saw how has been done across history in the past. So we saw also from Miguel yesterday how a map was created in London in 80 in the past when we had the cholera. So we saw that also this data can serve to many other purposes, and visualization can also be a tool to bring the information to society. So visualization also provides unique perspectives. We also heard about ocean literacy efforts to diverse target groups, from schools to initiatives that can bring maps to your pocket, but also that we need to reach people where they are. We need to understand where our audience is and reach them in their daily environment. We saw yesterday, for example, from Andrew, the importance of bringing ocean literacy to maritime professionals in cargo ships. So translating this data to maritime professionals, but also for ferry users. We saw that the scale of outreach also matters. So when we do things where actually people are, we can reach larger numbers of people. And the example that he brought yesterday made us see that between 3,000 and 6,000 people, for example, can pass through a single ferry each day. And if they are in contact with ocean literacy, it shows the power of using existing spaces for education. We also understood that we are data caretakers, and the stakeholder engagement is part of the process. So we should also care about the data, taking into account the people that are involved in this process. So true engagement with stakeholders and meaningful stakeholder participation happens when all actors from community to policymakers are involved in shaping solutions. And we also might have in those stakeholders engagement processes other dimensions that are sometimes not so spoken in engagement processes, such as the emotional dimension. So engagement isn't purely technical. It also includes emotion, intangible values of the ocean, and identity. And as scientists, we also need to be aware of those processes to do a good work with our communities. So with that, I finalize to pass the floor to our speakers, who today will bring us many different dimensions of data and their importance. Our first speaker is Adam Leadbetter. He is the lead manager of the Decade Coordination Office for Ocean Data Sharing under the UN Ocean Decade. Adam's career has been dedicated to building bridges between data systems and communities. He previously worked at the British Oceanographic Data Centre and led Ireland National Marine Data Team on the Marine Institute in Galway. Through his involvement in numerous European and data sharing initiatives, Adam continues to shape the global data landscape for a more connected and open science community. Adam, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, thank you, Anna, and hopefully you can see my my presentation now.
We can.
Great. So I kind of feel a little bit like everything has already been said that I want to say, so I'm just going to say it again. It's great to be here. I'm going to try and not go into too much technical detail in the next in the next few minutes as we go through this presentation. I want to try and leave you with some questions and also leave you with some things to think about for your own careers as well. And you know, I think this training is targeted at early career ocean professionals. I think if you'd taken me aside 20 years ago when I was finishing my PhD and said that I'd be giving a talk to early career ocean professionals from the seat of being the lead manager for the Decade Coordination Office for Ocean Data Sharing and leading a global initiative, I wouldn't have believed what you were saying. So I just want to leave you with that thought as well, that you know, you can change the world. You can do anything. You can help us create the future. And so I just want to give you that kind of inspiration as well. And so as we think about the future, as we think about let's say 2030, which would be the end of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, what's the vision that we want to see come to life? What do we want to be true in 2030? The tagline of the decade is the science we need for the ocean that we want. And in the Decade Coordination Office for Ocean Data Sharing, we're obviously very focused on just one of the challenges of the decade, which is to build a digital representation of the ocean. And so by 2030, our vision is that we have a data discovery and access service for ocean data. Now, what that looks like, again, is something that we're working on at the moment, but there are many different ways in we can make that happen. there has been work that's happened through the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission over the last few years on an ocean data and information system. And that, I think, has paved the way for us to be able to discover a wide range of ocean data. But now our next step is to really provide much more global access to ocean data and much more seamless access to ocean data so that we can build tools like these digital twins that we heard about from Marina on the first day, and that are continuing to really push what happens in Europe around data and data exchange, and then the products on top. We also want to build a global digital atlas of the ocean, and you would have heard yesterday from Natalie about the European Atlas of the Seas. And I think, for us, the global digital atlas of the ocean is a very similar product to that, a very similar approach to that, because we want to be able to really reach out to a wide audience, to bring data and information about what has happened in the decade, what the impact of the decade has been, and then also to bring data that answers the other challenges of the decade, which I'll touch on in a little bit. We also are working with our colleagues in Mercator Ocean International around an expanded and standardized ocean prediction framework. And one of the things that's really exciting for me in the decade is bringing all of these things to a global audience. And this is where, so we're bringing training over the next few months to the Caribbean region, to South America, to Africa, to small island states in the Pacific, around building communities around ocean data, around how to really look after ocean data. Many of the things that you've heard this week, we're going to be bringing to those communities around the world. And the colleagues that we have in Mercator Ocean, who are working on the ocean prediction framework for the decade, are bringing their ocean prediction frameworks into Africa. They have a project called Opera, which is bringing and expanding the ocean prediction frameworks there as well. So you can see we've got an ambitious vision, and I would like to challenge you to have an ambitious vision as you seek to create impact, to seek to create change, to seek to work towards the ocean and the future that you want by 2030. So really to think about that and to have that vision and see how you can work towards it. The title I was given was Fair to Impact, and you would have seen this slide earlier in the week from my colleague Margarita, where we kind of put up both what is fair, but then also these are all the things that need to go into fair as well. And the reason why people have talked this week about org IDs for people, talked about descriptions, detailed descriptions of data in the metadata, the reason why we're building an ocean data information system, the reason why we talked about controlled vocabularies on earlier in the week and using the NERC vocabulary server that comes from BODC to create interoperable data, is so that we have a real framework that we can work from. If we just say fair, that actually doesn't mean that something is really fair. And so I think one of the things that we're working towards in the decade is a description of what really is fair data for the ocean. And that will help us to build the digital representation of the ocean. So we need to properly answer questions. We properly need to define how to put into place all of the colored boxes here so that we can actually build a fair ocean data system. But again, really, fair is only actually a stepping stone to trust in your data, to impact in your data. You build trust in your data by publishing it, by putting it online, by having all of that information around it. You build trust in your data by using and referencing standards. That's not just data standards. We heard it earlier in the week about processes and best practices and the Ocean Best Practices System has come up time and again. But even if you can describe in your data and link to a paper that tells how you have collected your data, processed your data, then that really helps in building trust in your data. So all of this is a stepping stone. Again, we've heard about provenance this week, and I just want to dwell on that for a moment. Provenance means, again, describing your processes. Describe all the processes that you have gone through. Describe the people. Use those unique identifiers to people, to organizations, to instruments, to how the instrument has been calibrated. And then describe the quality of your data. And again, we've mentioned this so many times, but get an identifier for everything. Identify everything that is in that chain. Make sure you get yourself an ORC ID, as we've already mentioned, and an ocean expert record, so that we know who you are. And this is kind of some of the thing that we're doing in the decade, is encouraging people to do this, so that we can really build this ecosystem of data. But really, for me, FAIR is about small TRUST, trust, not the capital TRUST that we've talked about as the framework, but creating trust in your data. And that's how one of the ways in which you can create impact. You can show that you are sharing, you can show who you are, you can show that you're following these standards, you can show the chain of processing that you've gone through. And then the next way to create impact from your data is to connect your data. Anna, as we opened up then, just talked about storytelling and making connections with end users. And so I don't really want to dwell on those things too much here, but they are so important. They are so important to us as we connect our data and our science to the general public, to private industry, and to policy and to government. One of the things that I do want to say here is, I think as research scientists, we quite often are a bit scared of private industry, right? It's something that kind of happens outside of our sphere of understanding. And one of the things that I want to say is, don't be scared of private industry, right? I've spent a number of years, as well as working in the British Oceanographic Data Centre and the Marine Institute, working for a multi-billion-dollar company. You can learn a lot from private industry. You can learn a lot about how to do things professionally. You can also learn a lot about how not to do things as well. But also, I think we can really also help unlock private industry data. The private sector holds a huge amount of oceanographic data. And once we can make connections with them as end users, so private industry will use oceanographic data in planning operations in the ocean. Private industry will use oceanographic data more and more in the future to describe its impact on the environment and to report its impact on the environment. So by storytelling about the ocean, by making connections with private industry as end users, we can begin to unlock the data that they hold and feed into the data sets that we have. And so we'll increase our impact by increasing our data to increase our understanding. So that's just one example of how to connect your data. And so, yeah, what's our what if? What's our vision for 2030? So why are we building in the decade a digital representation of the ocean? Why do we even have a decade coordination office for ocean data sharing? Well, there are 10 challenges in the decade, and building the digital representation of the ocean is just one of those challenges. Our 2030 vision is that we will beat ocean pollution, that we will improve coastal resilience, that we will unlock ocean solutions to climate change, that we will protect and restore marine ecosystems, and there's more as well, that we will restore humanity's relationship with the ocean, that there will be a connection between people and ocean. And so this is why in a global program, a global 10-year program that is looking at the science we need for the ocean we want, that all of the data, that FAIR data, that acknowledging where data came from, that involving local people, indigenous people in not only the science, not only in the collection of the data, but also in the outputs of the research and the presentation of the research is really important so that we can build an holistic, comprehensive digital representation of the ocean to unlock the answers to all of these challenges. So I want to leave you with a question. What if? What if you can do some of these things in your own area, in your own community? What if you can connect your data to different people? What if you can connect your data to different end users? What if you can tell those stories about data in different ways? What if you never stop learning? What if you take on board the ways in which different communities, design communities think about the future, industrial designers think about the future, graphic designers tell stories and create impact in the posters and things like this that they produce? What if you can draw on all of these different ways in which you can communicate your data and communicate your science to talk to different communities? Then I think then you will have created impact. So I hope that was okay, and I'm going to try and stop sharing my screen now and hand back to Anna.
Thank you so much, Adam, for the presentation. Also, it's always exciting to see the efforts of the decade internationally and understand how FAIR can be part of this process as well as in building trust with the data by identifying everything was very insightful. I would like now to kindly ask all the participants that you can use the chat to bring your questions to the speakers directly. You just can identify to the speaker that you want to direct your question, but please use the chat because by the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A moment with everybody. Now I turn from this data side to the governance and legal dimensions of the ocean, especially in the high seas. It's my pleasure to introduce Binju Lee, Legal Officer at the Division for Ocean Affairs and the Law of the Sea, DOALOS, within the United Nations Office of Legal Affairs. Since 2017, he has followed the BBNJ process closely, supporting both the Intergovernmental Conference and the Preparatory Commission as part of the Secretariat team. Before joining the UN, he spent 10 years in China Foreign Service, specializing in public international law. He holds a Bachelor of Law from the China University of Political Science and Law and a Master from the University of Melbourne. Binju, I'm pleased to give you the floor.
Hi, good morning. Thank you very much for the introduction. So let me try to bring out the presentation. Okay, do you say well?
Yes, perfect. Thank
Okay, great. So thank you very much for the organizers for inviting the Division for Ocean Affairs and Law of the Sea of the UN Office of Legal Affairs to contribute to this important training. So it's my pleasure to be with you today. And as Anna mentioned that I'm sort of turning into a legal or policy dimension. So it's like I'm not a data expert, I'm a lawyer. So, but I think I hope this presentation can share with you some of the idea from the other back spectrum, the need from the governance and also the policy side on where data is very much needed. So my presentation will focus on the BBNJ Agreement, which is short for the agreement under the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea on the conservation and the sensible use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. So as you can see, this is a very, very long name. And so that's why we tend to, once you read it once, and we just refer to as a BBNJ Agreement. So I would also particularly mention the role of ocean data that can play in supporting its implementation, including the clearinghouse mechanism to be established under agreement. So the adoption of the BBNJ agreement in June 2023 was widely hailed as a historical achievement among states, civil society, and the media. So it is referred to as a triumph of multilateralism. So the UN Secretary General urged all states to spare no effort to ensure that the agreement enters into force and called on them to act quickly and without delay to sign and ratify it and pledge his support to that end. So the good news is that BBNJ agreement is on track to enter into force remarkably quickly. So having reached the threshold required in agreement, it will enter into force on 17th January 2026. So it's quite soon. It took about 2.5 years after its adoption, so making one of the fastest ocean treaty to enter into force following their adoption. So this will also mark a landmark moment for global ocean governance. So far, 144 states and the European Union have signed the agreement, and 74 states and the European Union have ratified it. So to also put in the context, the BBNJ agreement is the third implementing agreement to UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, which currently have 171 parties. So UNCLOS itself is commonly known as the Constitution for the Ocean. So as it sets out the limits of the various maritime zones, as well as the rights and obligations of states in those zones, including in relation to marine scientific research, the development and transfer of marine technology, conservation and sustainable use of marine resources, as well as the protection and preservation of marine environment. One very important clarification, so to make at the very beginning, is the agreement applies to areas beyond national jurisdiction, or ABNJ, so for short, and so which includes 2 maritime zones defined under UNCLOS. So the first is the high seas, which includes all parts of the seas that are not included in the exclusive economic zone, the territorial sea, or the internal water of states, or in archipelagical waters of archipelagic states. The second is the international seabed area, also known as the area with a capital A, which is the seabed and ocean floor and subsoil thereof beyond the limits of national jurisdiction. So this maritime zones, both the water column and the seabed, are areas beyond national jurisdiction. And by surface area, they cover over 2/3 of the ocean. So it's about half of the planet. So they host the rich biodiversity and support essential ecosystem services, from fisheries to climate regulation and other activities, but they remain largely unexplored or underexplored, under-researched. So this is also where more and better ocean data can make a real difference. Sorry, jump too quickly. So what is in agreement? So the agreement addresses a package of issues, which include 4 key issues and also some cross-cutting issues under the overall objective of ensuring the conservation and sensible use of marine biodiversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction. So I will turn to these 4 issues one by one later. So in this presentation, and so the use of best available science and scientific information and the use of relevant traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities where available are among the general principles and approaches that would guide the implementation of the agreement. The agreement also contains some novel features for ocean treaty, such as extensive provisions on indigenous peoples and local communities, including respect for their rights and the participation in various processes under the agreement. It contains provisions which address the ocean climate biodiversity nexus and also has provisions aimed at addressing gender balance and taking into consideration of gender aspects in capacity building activities. Okay, now turn to the 4 issues. The first is the marine genetic resources, including the fair and equitable sharing of benefits. So the agreement sets up a framework for the fair and equitable sharing of monetary and non-monetary benefits arising from activities with respect to marine genetic resources of areas beyond national jurisdiction, and also digital sequence information on such resources. One objective of this framework is to generate knowledge, scientific understanding, and technology technological innovation, including through the development and conduct of marine scientific research. Among others, the agreement provides for notification on activities with respect to marine genetic resources and DSI, which include notification pre-collection, post-collection, and also at the stage of utilization of such resources and DSI. Information to be included in such notification include data management plans, which I understand was addressed in this training, and so prepared according to open and responsible data governance, taking into account current international practice and any updates thereto. Updates thereto, I mean the updates of the data management plan should also be notified to the clearinghouse mechanism to be established under agreement. So importantly, the agreement recognizes open access to findable, accessible, iterable, and reusable FAIR. You have heard a lot in this training, I believe. Scientific data in accordance with current international practice and open and responsible data governance as a form of non-monetary benefit sharing from activities with respect to marine genetic resources. So turning to the second issue addressed by the agreement, area-based management tools, including marine protected areas. The agreement provides for procedures for the establishment and implementation of area-based management tools, including marine protected areas in areas beyond national jurisdiction. Scientific information will be fundamental in informing the formulation of and consultations on such proposals, and the proposals to establish such tools, and the advice of the scientific and technical body I will turn to later, and also the decision-making by the conference of the parties on such tools. Of course, the scientific information will also be very important in informing the implementation of such tools, the monitoring of them, and also the review of them. So in this context, ocean data will be essential and to inform decisions, track progress, and enable adaptive management. So in particular, they will ensure that measures established are evidence-based and also remain effective over time. So turning to the third issue, the agreement further operationalizes the provisions of UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, on environmental impact assessments for areas beyond national jurisdiction. So it, in particular, establishes processes, thresholds, and other requirements for conducting and reporting such assessments. Scientific and information ocean data are essential throughout the process, from identifying potential environmental impacts to informing consultations, and also supporting decisions by the parties under. That's kind of going too legal. So decisions on proposed activities, whether they could proceed or not, following the environmental impact assessment. So they also underpin the work of the Conference of the Parties and the scientific and technical body in reviewing and improving these assessments. The agreement also provides that the Conference of the Parties may also conduct a strategic environmental assessment of a specific area or region in areas beyond national jurisdiction to bring together and analyze the best available information, assess current and possible future impacts, and identify data gaps and research priorities. So in this regard, reliable, accessible, and well-governed ocean data will not only make this assessments, the EIAs, possible, but also help ensure that decisions are transparent, inclusive, and science-based. So the last of the four key issues is capacity building and transfer of marine technology. So the agreement provides for the obligations of parties to cooperate in capacity building and transfer of marine technology and sets out various modalities to that end. So the objectives of these provisions include to develop marine scientific and technological capacity, including with respect to research, and to increase, disseminate, and share knowledge. The agreement defines marine technology with a very broad definition, which largely followed the ILC guidelines, and so which include inter alia information and data provided in user-friendly format on marine sciences and related marine operations and services, manuals, guidelines, criteria, standards, and reference materials, sampling and methodology equipment, observation facilities and equipment, and also computer and computer software, etc., etc. So which is in Article 1 of the agreement. So the agreement outlines various types of capacity building and transfer of marine technology. So this include specifically the sharing and use of relevant data, information, knowledge, and research results. References to data also appear throughout the Annex 2, which is Annex to further elaborate on the types of capacity building and transfer of marine technology. So I mentioned earlier that the agreement also addresses a number of cross-cutting issues, and such as the relationship between the agreement and other relevant instruments and frameworks, and the relevant global, regional, sub-regional, and sectoral bodies, as well as institutional arrangements, implementation, compliance, and funding and dispute settlement, etc. So due to time constraint, and so I will just focus on the institutional arrangements, in particular the clearinghouse mechanism. But I do want to highlight, so on this slide, you see is all the institutional arrangements established under the agreement from the Conference of the Parties Secretariat, but also 5 subsidiary bodies of the Conference of the Parties. And so this includes the scientific technical body, which will provide scientific and technical advice to the Conference of the Parties. So of course, and the ocean data, I think it would be quite important. This would be a body which really kind of can help bridge that data and the policy. And also, there's just one more word on the composition of the scientific and technical body. So this is actually an issue as still being discussed in preparation for the entry into force of the agreement. I will mention later. And so, however, the agreement did provide a composition of the scientific and technical body well taking into account the need for multidisciplinary expertise, including relevant scientific and technical expertise, and also expertise in relevant traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities, and also among other possible expertise that need to be taken into account. So another word about is Access and the Benefit Sharing Committee, and there's a data-specific mandate for the Access and Benefit Sharing Committee. So the agreement provides that this committee may consult and facilitate the exchange of information with relevant legal instruments, frameworks, and the relevant global, regional, sub-regional, and sectoral bodies on activities under its mandate, including benefit sharing, the use of digital sequence information on marine genetic resources, best practices, tools and methodologies, data governance, and also lessons learned. So on clearinghouse mechanism, which is very central to the implementation of the agreement. It is set up in Article 51, and so I have included the QR code here, and so we'll take you to this flow chart, which I know is not readable on the screen. So you could read on your device, and so this actually basically is a flow chart, could take you through all the different functions provided for the clearinghouse mechanism in the agreement, and also in terms of the governance for the clearinghouse mechanism. So I think the fundamentally, like primarily, and so its role is to serve as a centralized platform to enable parties to the agreement to access, provide, and disseminate information on activities carried out pursuant to its provisions. So of course, this includes the information relating to the 4 key issues I already discussed earlier in the presentation. So it also provides other specific functions, including those under Article 51. So I want to highlight a few which may be quite relevant. So one is to provide links to relevant global, regional, sub-regional, national, and sectoral clearinghouse mechanisms and other gene banks, repositories, and databases. So including those pertaining to relevant traditional knowledge of indigenous peoples and local communities. And also where possible, promote links with publicly available private and non-governmental platforms for the information exchange. So another function would be to foster enhanced transparency, including by facilitating the sharing of environmental baseline data and also information relating to the conservation and accessible use of marine biological diversity of areas beyond natural jurisdiction between parties and other relevant stakeholders. So I think that was particularly foreseen as a mechanism or like a way for it, a function for it to kind of bridge the scientific community and also the parties. So another one I want to mention is the function of the clearinghouse mechanism to facilitate international cooperation and collaboration, including scientific and technical cooperation and collaboration. But of course, those are general provisions in agreement, and how they will be actually implemented in practice, and is still yet to be determined by the Conference of the Parties in the future, and also to be, of course, rely upon the contribution of all stakeholders. And so, of course, as you can see in this context, ocean data also underpins the entire functioning of the clearinghouse mechanism. So it will ensure that ensuring such data are reliable, interpretable, and accessible will be key to supporting its effective functioning. So just a last slide about where we go from here, because I mentioned earlier it will enter into force in January next year. So the agreement provides the first meeting of the Conference of the Parties will need to be convened by the UN Secretary General within 1 year following the entry into force of the agreement. So that takes to 2027 January. That also means that very likely there's a real possibility the COP will take place in 2026, so which next year, very soon. Pursuant to General Assembly Resolution 78/272, and so the UN General Assembly established the preparatory commission to prepare for the entry into force of the agreement. So they have already held 2 sessions. The first session was in April last year, and the second session was August. Sorry, the first session was this year too. Last year was the organizational meeting. So the first session was April this year, and so the second session was August this year, and so the third session will take place in March to April next year. So the Commission addressed 3 main clusters of issues, and namely the governance issue, such as the rules of procedure to govern the functioning of the Conference of the Parties and the subsidiary bodies. It also discusses in terms of the terms of reference and the modalities of operation, and also selection of members, and for the subsidiary bodies, which include the scientific and technical body. This is the first cluster of issues, and the second cluster of issues is actually a dedicated cluster on the clearinghouse mechanism, so which is called issues pertaining to the operation of the clearinghouse mechanism. And the last cluster is financial related matters, such as financial rules, financial resources, and mechanism. And the very last, just to mention, Dualos currently performs interim secretary functions, until the secretary to be established under agreement commences its functions. In summary, the BBNJ agreement marks a major milestone in international ocean governance and creates real opportunities and for ocean data to inform and support its implementation. The success of the agreement will depend not only on the legal, policy, and administrative measures to be adopted by parties, some of them already being adopted, but also on active engagement of all relevant stakeholders, including the scientific community, including the early career ocean professionals, and also on equitable, accessible, and transparent ocean data. So this concludes my presentation, and so please let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Binju. I asked the participants also to leave questions for you directly on the chat, because we will address them later. It has been a great presentation. We know that for the whole ocean community, the agreement has been also a reason for celebration somehow, and a huge milestone, as you said. So it's great to have this overview on the full process. Thank you so much for that, and how also data will be central in the process. Thank you so much. Up next, now we'll hear from data and transparency and how it can transform the way we manage living marine resources. Please welcome to the floor Luca Marsaglia, Senior Fisheries Analyst for Europe and the Mediterranean at Global Fishing Watch. Luca leads an analytical and technical effort supporting fisheries monitoring and management. His work breeds government agencies, regional bodies, academia, and civil society, helping turn satellite data and analytics into actionable insights for sustainable fisheries. Before joining Global Fishing Watch, Luca worked as a fisheries scientist at Wageningen University, using genetic data to study ray populations in the North Sea, and later at Ifremer in France, researching ecosystem trends. He also spent some time in Nicaragua, collaborating with local fishers to reduce sea turtle bycatch. He's now doing a PhD at the University of Rome, focusing on innovative approaches for sustainable fisheries management. Please, Luca, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anna, for the introduction. maybe I should have sent a shorter bio. I just realized maybe it was a bit long, but it's an honor for me to be here with you. Today, I will give you an introduction to Global Fishing Watch. My name is Luca Marsaglia, and again, I'm a senior fisheries analyst at Global Fishing Watch. And Global Fishing Watch is an international NGO using satellite technology, machine learning, and data visualization to try to improve our understanding of human activity at sea. And we do this by making data free and openly accessible to the public, hoping that this work can support greater transparency, new scientific research, and ultimately the sustainable use of our ocean, such as like improving fisheries management and as well reducing IUU. We are now over 100 staff all over the world, and we have almost 100K users that use our data for, again, research or analysis related to the marine realm. Our theory of change is that we can create, transform, and distribute data in order to, again, increase transparency of human activities at sea globally at the global ocean scale. And this knowledge that can be created with this data then can create greater accountability, improve governments, and ultimately reduce ecological threats and social threats that the ocean face, as we know. So our strategy is fundamentally based on 3 pillars. The first is to map human activity at sea. So essentially to use and create new data to map more of what happens at sea. Secondly, to engage governments to use our data and to adopt transparency by sharing data and by using public data, and also to advance transparency in international policy fora, such as coffee at FAO. I myself that work in the Mediterranean, I work a lot with the General Fisheries Commission for the Mediterranean, which is an RFMO, so we are also very active at the RFMO level. This is sort of our main platform, which is the Global Fishing Watch map, where global fishing activity is tracked near real time and for free. And we will touch on this a bit more during this presentation. So the platform provides historic data. We go back several years across our datasets, which includes fishing effort, encounters between vessels, and detections from satellite imagery. Our data is near real time. So it goes back essentially today. We could see the day just 3 days back. It has a 72 hours delay, and it's quite easy to use. I will go in a moment in the map, like at the end of the presentations, just to see how you can log in, and is accessible, again, very easily accessible and free to anyone with an internet connection. So we have different tools and different way that data are displayed and shared with users. We have a data sets of the data that was published in various scientific publications that we had. And we visualize this data through tools like the maps that I showed before. And then we also have analytical tools on the map that you can use to generate quickly reports and insights in specific areas for different data sets. And these open and shareable tools and data and analysis are used in different key areas of fisheries management and monitoring, control, and surveillance. So from transshipment monitoring to monitoring protected area or designate new marine protected areas, but also support MCS, so monitor, control, and surveillance operations, and port control, so like inspections on board vessels. This is some of the different technologies that we apply. Our, let's say, like cornerstone technology is automatic identification system data, which essentially is a device that vessels have on board, like a GPS. And what we do with IES is that we can see the track movements of the vessels, and we apply algorithm to classify fishing activity from that. The other technologies uses satellite imagery, so being optical imagery or nighttime light imagery and radar imagery. And what we apply is algorithms that detect vessels within this imagery. And I wanted to bring you again some case studies before showing the map. This is because again, as a European context, I work in the Mediterranean. I brought some Mediterranean example. Last year, we collaborated with the Ministry of Agriculture in Albania, and we were part with the ministry in the official stakeholder consultation of the GFCM, that is the RFMO. And essentially, we used the IES data to understand the social economic impact of this new fishery restricted area that was being proposed at the RFMO level, and so the data was used in the designation discussions, and ultimately again this area was approved. And so for us, of course, was a very important achievement, because when our data are used in official processes, it's where we know again that our data can make an impact in supporting fisheries management or marine spatial planning and so on. We have several research collaborations across the Mediterranean, either for specific publications or for again supporting different projects. And again, we love to engage also with researchers that want to use our data, for example, and maybe have questions, and we like always to share insights. And here is an example where the Mediterranean is very peculiar because we have IES available really mostly in the northern part, so for European Union countries, because for those countries it's mandatory. So we have IES available, and so here you see all the southern Mediterranean looks like a big marine protected area, but we know that those countries, of course, carry fish operations, and so we use remote sensing data and detections from remote sensing data to assess the troll fishing activity across the whole Mediterranean Sea. And again, we collaborate with several researchers, several Mediterranean experts to draft these publications. Other case studies include this case, which maybe some of you might be familiar, but is a scientific study that revealed the largest known case of illegal fishing, where again we use these vessel detections from satellite imagery, and more than 900 vessels originating from China were detected in North Korean waters, violating UN sanctions. And what has been actually very interesting to see is that now in recent year we see this almost decrease completely. So also there we like to think that the showing this data had an impact on this big phenomenon. Another scientific study that we worked on was to use the satellite data and machine learning algorithms to reveal the risk of forced labor on vessels. So we use a set of training data where labors at sea was known to happen, and then we applied different parameters that we have in the data to then predict vessels that are at risk of forced labors, and so that inspectors can prioritize potentially these vessels to check for potential forced labor activities. So I'll finalize before going into showing you just how to access the map by mentioning that we have an API portal which allows non-commercial users to easily explore, visualize, and also download our data. And again, we hope that this, of course, can catalyze collaborations and solutions to address various ocean problems, and not just also related to fisheries. Again, here is the different APIs that are available. I will not go into details on this, but to access it is very easy. You just go on our website, you will register for an account and request an API key. And you can also subscribe to receive updates both on the various activities that we carry on, but we often have webinars that touch on how to use the data and give tutorials, and that you can always also find online. And we have a very thorough documentation that we try to keep updated about the various data sets that we have available. So I just wanted to give you a quick demo. If I'm doing okay with time, I will just click on the link, which is simply from the globalfishingwatch.org website. But this is our map. And again, maybe I will zoom in here into the Mediterranean and Northern Europe. And so what you're looking at now is classified fishing activity from IES, where again, you have on a scale to greenish to white fishing hours. And as I was mentioning before, the data go back, and moving here on the time bar at the bottom, all the way for several years back. And again, it's near real time. If we go in here, you'll see that we have data up to 3 days ago. And so the data is interactive, as you have seen changes as I changed the timeline. And the map has, again, several functions that I will not have the time to show you now, but it's quite easy to use, and there is several tutorials available online. If you go on our website, there is a tutorial page with many videos as well, and explainers to use the map. And there is many other data sets. Again, I touched before on detections from satellite imagery, but we also struggle to thrive to include environmental data sets and other type of data sets, such as bathymetry, offshore infrastructure, and so on. And so I invite you to explore and playing with the tool, and because it's quite intuitive how it works. So that's it from my end. So thank you very much, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you so much, Luca. And I ask all the participants also to bring questions for you directly on the chat. Dina is speaking those questions, so we will be also addressing them later to you. Thank you so much also for bringing this overview of how ocean science can be used in practice, and also how social data as well. And as you mentioned, that labor force, labor data can also be used to improve the quality of work in fishing vessels. Thank you so much, Luca. Now we shift to ocean mapping and technology, and to someone who has been part of this field since the 80s. Our next speaker, Steve Hall, has spent nearly 40 years working in ocean science, technology, and policy. He began his career conducting coastal and industrial survey in Wales, then spent over 2 decades with the UK Natural Environment Research Council. There he managed autonomous underwater vehicles missions and helped shape marine policy on renewable energy, fisheries, and ocean planning. Today, Steve works with the Seabed 2030 project, which is accelerating the efforts to map the entire ocean floor, and continues to advise marine organizations around the world. So please, Steve, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thanks, everybody. Can you all hear me okay? Yeah, great, good. Right, I'm actually doing this. I'm in a car park outside another conference I'm at, so I just had to rush across the car park and get to the car to do this. Right, let's see if it will take my presentation. Right. Okay, you got a Seabed 2030 presentation up?
We do.
No.
Just see the full screen.
Great. Okay, here we go. Right. So I'm just going to briefly run through what we're trying to do with Seabed 2030, because marine spatial planning, all of these activities that many of you will find yourselves being involved with in your career, all of it depends on maps. We all need maps. And I always love to scare students with this very, very first slide I often show people. It was actually originally done by Mike Elliott and his colleagues at the University of Hull. He called it his ultimate horrendogram. And what he tried to do on this slide was show examples of all of the different kinds of marine legislation that typically apply to a developed state. And it's everything from international law and commitments through to EU directives, to targets and statuses. It's about enabling and primary legislation, all kinds of different things. The key thing is that all of these categories, first of all of them have jobs attached to them. So, you know, if you can read these things, or we'll download it later, have a look at all the text. All of these things have jobs attached. And all of them include aspects that if your country doesn't do the job right, if it doesn't obey the rules and regulations that are in these pieces of legislation, it can mean fines, it could even mean jail time for somebody. So there's a strong political and legal incentive to get this stuff right. And fundamentally, it all needs maps. You can't manage what you haven't measured, so you have to get out there, get the sensors, get the platforms into the ocean, and start figuring out what you can learn. So Seabed 2030 exists to serve a program called GEBCO. That's the General Bathymetric Chart of the Oceans. That has been in existence for over 100 years. It was started by Prince Albert of Monaco way back in 1903. It's voluntary, it's international, but in its first 113 years of operation, GEBCO only mapped 6% of the global ocean. So, and when we say well mapped, what do we mean by well mapped? That's a single data point in an area the size of a typical soccer pitch. So if you've got a single spot depth from something as big as a football field, we'll count that as mapped. So obviously it's not high resolution mapping, but it at least tells you where the hills and valleys are down there on the seabed. And so the GEBCO chart has evolved over the years from very, very basic charts based essentially on lead line soundings, right through to the pretty sophisticated products we have today. Back in 2016, the Nippon Foundation, a philanthropic organization based in Japan, stepped forward and basically said to the community they would like to pay to help us speed up the mapping of the global ocean. So they started a project called Seabed 2030, which I contract for. And the objective is to inspire 100% seabed mapping by 2030. Now, we won't actually get to 100% by Seabed 2030 because it's a very, very, very big ocean. But we have managed to get from the 6% that we had back in 2016 to now 27.3. And even 1% of the ocean is bigger than the entire land area of the European Union or the land area of the Indian subcontinent. So Seabed 2030 is quite a simple system. We have a small secretariat. We have regional centers looking at the Pacific and Arctic, the Atlantic and Indian Ocean, Southwest Pacific and the Southern Ocean. And then we have an administrative structure to bring that all together. And we work very closely with organizations such as EMODNet and the UN Ocean Decade Office to get all of that data uploaded. So here we are from this summer. This is from the summer of 2025. The areas in red on that map are the new data that was added over the last year. So it's slow but steady. And sometimes even a single survey can make a big difference. The big gaps in data, as you can see from the map, tend to be Southern Hemisphere and the big ocean basins. So Indian Ocean is probably the least well-mapped ocean basin. In some respects, that's down to domestic law as well. India has very strict regulations on who is allowed to map within their waters, and sometimes you'll find that they're not as willing to share data that's been gathered in their seas, as is the case from some other nations. But the system's getting better and better all the time, and we are gradually filling in the gaps. Bear in mind, this is, when we say mapped, this is actual real physical measurements from a ship or an autonomous platform with a sensor. This isn't satellite data, this is actual soundings. And in terms of resolution, there's a picture of central London. We're not after the highest resolution, 1 meter resolution type work. We're aiming at 100 meters. So if you were looking at that example of central London, it's enough to still see that the River Thames flows through the city, but not enough to pick out individual buildings and such like. Now, in order to complete the work, we're very, very reliant on what the new robotic and other autonomous platforms bring to us. They let us map in places that are hard to get at. For example, if you're trying to map underneath ice sheets, they let us map in all weather conditions, means we can get out there and get mapping even in the depths of a midwinter storm. And this new generation of sensors and sonars are constantly improving and helping us to fill in quite a lot of gap in data. The other key thing, and you'll all be aware of this, is we still have very fundamental knowledge gaps in the ocean. When that slide was put together, it was last year, it was only 26.1%, gone up a bit since then. But in June, July last year, Nature published this paper, for example, on dark oxygen. This was manganese nodules, the polymetallic nodules at the seabed, turning out apparently to be a source of oxygen production in the deep ocean. We had no idea this was even a thing. Completely new piece of science. It's been rigorously contested by people who want to do seabed mining, but nonetheless, it's a fascinating piece of science. It shows us that earth-changing, completely shattering knowledge still comes up every year. We're always discovering new things, and it just shows that we need to get out there and sample and map and do a lot more research. We have to use crowdsourcing to fill in the gaps as well. We work a lot with voluntary organizations such as the International Seakeeper Society. We work with individual ship owners, high net worth individuals who have expensive yachts who are able to put sonars onto their vessels. We give them data loggers so that they can contribute their data into the systems as well. The satellites, aircraft, drones can give us some data, but it tends only to be really useful in very shallow coastal waters, particularly in tropical latitudes where the water tends to be quite clear. Then sometimes we can derive some seabed information from remote sensing methods. With satellites by themselves, they measure ocean depth, the shape of the seafloor, very indirectly through variations in the Earth's gravitational field. And although they can give us valuable data, they'll tell us there's a mountain there or there's a valley there. The best resolution with satellites can be as little as 8,000 meters horizontally. So it's not good enough for a really detailed map of the seabed, but good enough to at least tell you if there's a mountain range or a valley down there. We work a lot with the community also on putting together the cost benefits analysis, the user cases, so that people understand why seabed mapping is helpful. So we'll talk about mapping innovation, how you map EEZs, subsea cable planning and design. We do have some challenges, the reluctance to release existing data, often because data gatherers don't own the data. So if they're a subsea survey company, the client owns the data, not the company that did the survey. So we do have to have we do sometimes face some challenges there. Who pays for it is always a challenge, and sometimes reluctance to grant permission because of UN Convention of the Law of the Sea issues. So it's not straightforward. Just because we've got data doesn't always mean we can share it. partners contribute their data. It's very straightforward. There's an online portal through the Seabed 2030 website. And some manufacturers, such as Kongsberg, actually add connectivity software to their hardware so that users can directly upload their data. We do a lot of outreach. Any of you that like listening to podcasts, I do a monthly Seabed 2030 podcast. Other podcasts are available, and they'll tell you all about what we're doing. And that's it. I've kept it short because I know it's the end of a long day. So if anybody's got any questions, I'm very happy to try and answer them in the time I've got available.
Thank you so much, Steve, and also for bringing the orandogram. I remember studying that in the university. It was quite complex.
Yes, it's wonderful. And it really pays detailed study. In fact, any student who actually has that slide and goes to find all the hyperlinks to each of those subjects will have actually taught themselves a huge amount about marine spatial planning, marine law.
Exactly. Thank you so much. So now I will call all speakers again to the floor because we will bring them some questions. So Dina is collecting some questions directly from the chat. Dina, do you have any interesting question for the speaker so far?
Yes, I actually have very nice questions. Some are questions for all speakers and some are questions for individual speakers. I will start with a question to Adam. If the UNESCO Ocean Data Center, Data Exchange Center, is considering a certified license system similar to fair trade to recognize NGOs and governments that comply with transparency and data sharing standards?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I think what we do have is an accreditation system for the National Oceanographic Data Centers. So that already exists, and National Oceanographic Data Centers that are recognized by UNESCO, by IOC, can apply for that accreditation. I have to say at the moment the uptake is quite low. So that's something we need to work on, and I think we also need to work on rolling that out as well to the associated data units and to other data providers as well. So we have a mechanism, we need to get it more adopted, and we need to broaden out who can apply to it as well.
Great, thank you. And there is a question to Binjo. Given the limited understanding of deep sea biodiversity, how does the BBNJ Agreement help protect the deep sea from mining and ensure fair sharing of potential benefits?
Thank you for the question. It's a very interesting question, and it's also a very I would say hot topic. And so I do want to just clarify that so mining the international, so there's mining within natural jurisdictions. So I think the question is specific on mining in areas beyond natural jurisdictions, which is in the international Seabed area. I mentioned the area with a capital A, which is governed by the UNCLOS Part 11, and also the 1994 agreement relating to the implementation of that part, which was the first implementing agreement to UNCLOS. So under this legal regime, the area and the mineral resources in the area are common heritage of humankind. So activities relating to such resources are organized, carried out, and controlled through the International Seabed Authority, the ISA. So currently there's a work ongoing under ISA to develop regulations for the exploitation of mineral resources in the area. So the ISA is also mandated under UNCLOS to take necessary measures to ensure the protection of marine environment from any harmful effect that may arise from such activities. So that's also part of the work which is ongoing in developing the draft regulations. So turning to the okay, so I just also heard about the sharing profits. So under that regime, so there's a benefit sharing from the mineral exploitation areas, which is also part of the work which is ongoing in developing the regulation on exploitation. So some provisions of the BBNJ agreement may impact how such activities are conducted, including the provisions on environmental impact assessments. So I mentioned earlier, so which was also actually further operationalized UNCLOS provisions on EIAs. So the agreement also includes specific provisions and also foresee additional measures to be adopted by the Conference of the Parties in the future to coordinate mechanisms, to coordinate measures taken under relevant instrument frameworks and bodies, which includes ISA, of course. And so furthermore, I think the implementation of the BBNJ agreement has a real potential to increase our understanding of the biodiversity of areas beyond national jurisdiction, including the area, which I think is a fundamental to this question as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I also have a question to Luca. And that one is how to disclose information regarding forced labor in the fishing vessels.
Thank you. So I've, I think, also replied in the chat, but where I shared the link where there is a lot more about our forced labor work. But essentially, we have developed and we work again to continuously refine a machine learning algorithm to identifying fishing vessels that are likely associated with forced labor. And this is based on movement patterns and various vessel characteristics. Some examples are, for example, how long a vessel is at sea, the flags and the encounters with other flags, and the model is trained on reported cases of forced labor. And again, because we have access to these cases through authorities that have shared these cases with us, and so we can use those as training data, and as I mentioned, then apply the algorithm to other vessels.
Thanks a lot, Luca. And then we have something for Steve as well, if you are here still with us.
Yep, still there, still there.
Okay, perfect. What are the ocean carriers that would need the use of ocean bathymetric maps on a daily basis in their work?
What was the second term? What are the ocean
Carriers.
carriers?
So I suppose who are the biggest users maybe of your activities? Maybe this could be.
Okay. Well, I mean, fundamentally, always the first reason for bathymetric mapping is always safety of shipping. That's historically that's always been its first and most important use. You don't want ships, especially large draft vessels like oil tankers, you don't want them hitting uncharted rocks. Other major users of seabed mapping are the people who lay cables, so the global internet cable network, pipelines, offshore energy production systems, so oil, gas, offshore wind, marine spatial planners in general, so people who are trying to construct good marine spatial plans so they can optimize the activity that's been carried out in the ocean, so the right kind of activity is carried out in the right kind of place, and that you don't do activities that heavily conflict in the same marine space. I mean, it's good seeing Adam on the call. The Irish, for example, have done incredible work on their marine spatial plan with a really comprehensive seabed map of pretty much their entire EEZ, and has given Ireland a massive head start on being able to really not just regulate, but sensibly regulate what happens in their waters. You know, you don't test torpedoes in the same place that you want to develop as a marine mammal reproduction area or something like this. So that it just helps humans apply common sense. So yeah, those tend to be the main kind of users. But this is such a new field. This is such a new industry. I was talking to a group of Nigerians 2 weeks ago, and I said to them, look, you are free to develop this industry almost as you like, because it's like a clean sheet of paper in many respects. Marine spatial planning and ocean mapping. And the nations, especially the early adopters, the first people to do this, are themselves going to be developing new ways of looking after the marine space in a better way than anybody has done in the past. You don't have to look at the example of developed first world nations. We haven't actually done it that well yet. Let the new people show us how to do it, because Britain, for example, where I'm from, we've got barely any really well protected marine areas at all. Our marine spatial planning, they still have trawling in areas that are supposed to be marine protected areas, and we can do better than that, and everybody can do better than that. And for you guys as young marine professionals, I'll hope that you're able to deliver really amazing work within the waters that you end up with responsibilities for.
Thanks a lot, Steve. We have also a question, and that will be addressed to all the speakers. How can gender considerations be better integrated into ocean data initiatives to raise awareness and address inequalities, especially those affecting women in the field? And I'm also interested maybe to add to this question is how you in your activities or in your initiatives actually address, you personally or your initiatives more generically, address gender issue. What are the tools and approaches where you try to increase equality? Who would like to start?
I'm happy to go first. So because I actually mentioned gender in my presentation. So BBNJ agreement does this is considered as one of the novel feature for an ocean treaty, because for the other ocean treaty we had UNCLOS, they did not touch these aspects. But the BBNJ agreement includes various provisions mentioned specifically to gender, so which include, for example, talk about the gender balance in terms of the composition of the subsidiary bodies established under the Conference of the Parties. But more importantly, I should not say more importantly, but as equally importantly, is like the provisions on the capacity building and transfer marine technology has specifically said the capacity building and transfer marine technology under the agreement should be a country-driven, transparent, effective, iterative process that is participatory, cross-cutting, and gender responsive. So I think I have mentioned that the essentially the data is kind of a very important role throughout the parts on the capacity building and transfer marine technology, because the data and information is part of the marine technology, and also a lot of the capacity building also relating to data. So I think the idea here, at least for the negotiator of the agreement, is to ensure that it is gender responsive on all the data dimensions as well. But I think I said earlier also, because right now we are eagerly looking forward to the first Conference of the Parties and how all those provisions would be implemented. And so it is an area where, and we will yet to see, but it's also where all parties and all stakeholders can contribute to shape that implementation going forward. In terms of our own work, and so at the UN, we do follow our own, we have guidelines in terms of gender balance, and so in different areas of our work. Starting from the workshops we organize, and so the panels we organize, events we organize, and also to make sure that in terms of the consultancies we supervise, we also try to ensure that that angle is taken care of. It's not only about participation, it's also about looking into, as you mentioned, the impact specific to women. So I had one project in my head specifically, which is on the trade and economic strategy, on the ocean trade and economic strategy. So we particularly look at the impacts for the women fishers, and so in terms of how that will impact them. So, and we do have work with the consultant to look into that particular angle. So it's just one example that we do try to incorporate it from a different level, and so in our daily activities. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other perspectives on gender and how to increase equality? Steve?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that in the mapping community, female representation is actually really, really good. Any of you that ever find yourselves at a mapping conference will find the guys are actually in the minority. It tends to be a field which is definitely attracting a good number of female researchers, and we notice this particularly with the large ocean states. I hate using the word small island developing states, so I call them large ocean states or big ocean states, because then they're bosses. And those communities are doing really, really great work in encouraging women and early career researchers into the field of ocean mapping and marine spatial planning. So depends on your discipline. Some, like marine physics, still tend to be very male dominated. I'd say biology, chemistry, mapping are predominantly female dominated at the moment. So we do see quite a difference.
Thanks, Steve. If we have more speakers who want to respond to that, raise your hand so I can see you. Otherwise, we can move to the last question in my session.
Adam, I think
Yeah.
Adam wants to address.
Adam, okay, great.
Yeah, I just wanted to. So I mean, I guess going back to the decade as well and the work that we do. I mean, I think a lot of the work that the decade is doing is trying to be as inclusive as possible, and I think it goes back to what we heard before about making sure that the capacity development and the training opportunities are there, and that they are promoted in the right way and promoted in the right places, and also then making sure that we bring the right communities into those opportunities so that we can give people the opportunities to develop the skills. I'd echo what Steve says as well. I think in terms of gender equality, there is a lot of difference in different fields and different groups. And so I know when I've worked in data centers, National Oceanographic data centers is often quite a good split, actually. Maybe that's just the experience I've had in the two that I've worked in, but they've been kind of pretty much 50-50 in terms of the people there between male and female. So I think that's good. But I think we need to recognize that and celebrate it, and then keep going and giving the opportunities in the right ways for people to be engaged.
Actually, my next question is about recognition and celebration. There was a question, are we not losing sight of the achievements we are having as a community of marine science in the UN Ocean Decade, in particular in the Ocean Decade? How can we celebrate the progress so that the action on the ocean is not at risk of fading behind other urgent agendas? And I would like to give for that a split response round, each speaker a minute or less. How do you think we should celebrate progress and make sure that ocean remains front and center in the political agenda everywhere?
So
Adam, yeah, please go.
I'll have you first as soon as my mic's open. So I think there's a couple of things we can do here. One is we do have in 2027, we do have the next decade conference in Rio de Janeiro. So that will be a great opportunity to celebrate progress in the decade. I think we do have to recognize in response to the question that at the midterm evaluation of the decade, strategic impact was kind of raised as one area that maybe needs addressing and improving. So yeah, I think we can do that. But I think as well, one way of doing that is to thematically find our communities of practice. And again, this is one of the ways the decade is set up and works. Find a community of practice that you want to join that's part of the decade. So for data sharing, you could join our community of practice. You can follow the office on LinkedIn and find out what we're doing there. And I think then we can celebrate smaller wins, smaller achievements, and then that grows into a bigger sense of achievement and drive. And so I think we need to find those opportunities to meet together in smaller thematic based ways, celebrate the achievements there and grow that into an overall celebration, and then have our big party in Rio in 27.
Yeah, we can already have a good party now. We have so many people definitely interested in ocean protection and fair data. So that's, I think, a cause for celebration. Okay, thank you so much, Adam. Maybe Luca next, and then
Yes.
and then Binjo.
Thank you, Dina. Yeah, so for us, I think the very first important thing is to track impact, and we really try to do that through a set of measures that we have for impact. And then trying, I think what Adam say really resonates with me, and I think I can speak also of my organization, is to set small steps toward a larger goals, because I think in our field many of our ultimate goals are long processes. The establishment of a protected area, or just an example, or a new resolution being drafted. It's processes that take long, and of course there is many steps to get to the end of those, and those steps, I think it's important to celebrate, because I think otherwise it can of course become frustrating at times, and it's important to not lose motivation in what we do every day at the end.
Thanks a lot. Celebrate every small step. That's a great message. And then, what did I say? I said Binju and Steve, I think.
Yeah, yeah, jumping here. So first of all, I want to invite everybody to join us in celebrating the entry into force of the BBNJ Agreement next January, 17th January 2026, and also in welcoming the first COP. I do think that I would like to invite early career ocean professionals to consider this could be an area to build your career to support the BBNJ's implementation. And so I do think up until now, there have a lot of work even under the decade in supporting to get increasing our knowledge of areas beyond national jurisdiction. I think this is a time to also look at what we have achieved, which can be used to support the BBNJ's implementation, and where we can do more. So I do think that the scientific committee has been supporting the agreement process like before its adoption. And now I think we need more engagement. And so because we cannot implement this agreement without the support of the scientific community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Steve, do you have some words on how can we celebrate and make sure ocean action stays visible?
I think this is almost a golden age in many respects for people involved in people who actually care about the ocean. I've been in this business for the best part of 40 years, and I've never seen the kind of enthusiasm and engagement with the next generation that we're starting to see at the moment. I think some of that is because of the UN Ocean Decade. That's certainly making a big difference. Some of it is simply the much greater awareness of ocean literacy and how much we're dependent upon the ocean. Some of it is a reaction against some of the unfortunate politics which is developing around the world, and people being legitimately concerned. Are we looking after the ocean as well as we should be? So I think it's a time of hope. I think it's up to the community to get involved, stay engaged, become active in whatever country you work in. Most of you will live in nations that have marine learned societies, professional bodies of various kinds. Get involved in them. Start your own if there isn't one. You can be the first person to have the Marine Learners Society for your country. Get involved, build a community, hold events, and just fly the flag. It's a good time to be in marine science, and there are a lot of things to celebrate.
Thanks very much. Okay, with that, I will pass over to Ana Victoria for a short Mentimeter session, so we can hear some more from you. Please stay tuned. Copy the QR code, the QR code with your phones, or you can enter the code via the browser on menti.com. Ana Victoria, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dina. So I will give you some minutes, some seconds actually, so the participants can scan this QR code, and then we go directly to our Menti. The link is also on the chat in case you want to open it from there. And let's see if we already have any answers. I'll share my screen now. I think you can see it. So the first question that we have is how can we
still just
you cannot see it?
let me try again. Yeah.
Now I think you will be able to see it.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, so the first question that we have is how can marine scientists be more active in sharing marine knowledge? So we saw many examples during this week because we see that It's important also to share marine data in a simple way for the audience that we want to talk. And I already see that we are already very busy. It's one of the questions. We know we all are, but that's the importance of collaborating and partnering with professionals that also know how to do this work, such as illustrators, ocean literacy experts, also artists. So I know that we are all very busy, but we need to make this effort to make data also more accessible. Storytelling, connecting with journalists, that's also a very good thing to do because, and we also held another training session some weeks ago on how also to talk with journalists, because also journalists are extremely busy and they need to understand our message in a very clear way. So being ready also to speak with them is also a good way to share marine knowledge. By staying up to date on marine matters and advocating for stakeholder involvement in all marine related issues with outreach projects, through research publications and collaborations, engaging with local communities, engaging close with circle of friends and family. That's also a good way to bring it. I also say that if we can explain the ocean to our grandmother, we can explain it to everybody because it's always an effort to make our family also to understand what we do. Bringing data literates to share them in the right places, publish in English. So I see that you brought through ocean literacy, connecting with journalists. Thank you so much for your answers because I see that we have great insights here. Help use AI to help design our data more accessible. That's also another insight that we can have through social media, storytelling again, collaboration with companies, communities. Thank you so much. So I'll pass now to our next question because we would like to know from you how ocean literacy can support the application of the principles, right, of the care, fair, and trust. So bring to us what your insights on that, and we'll be very happy to see it. For inclusivity, it already appears as a big word. So we saw already, and also from the talk that Hugo brought to us this week, also the one from Binju today, that inclusivity is also a very important aspect, right, in the application of the principles, because it creates awareness, vulgarization, so I would say probably the popularization of science, right, sharing knowledge, transparency, provide training on data, community, transparency, awareness, legal framework, trainings and inclusivity, connecting indigenous people. So we see that ocean literacy also has an important role on the application of the principles, right? Because through ocean literacy is also the path that we can use to make data more available and more understandable by the diverse targets that we want to understand the ocean. Thank you so much. So community, transparency, trust, involvement, training, awareness, inclusivity. I see that you are bringing many insights to this aspect. I will move to our next slide because we would like to know also from you, what are the key takeaways that you had from this training? So from day one, where we saw the introduction of the principles, from today where we saw the efforts on seabed mapping, also how data can be used in the fisheries context. From yesterday, insights on communication. What are the insights that you had from those 4 intensive days of training? So I see some of you are bringing that data management planning is an important topic, right? So I think this was a big insight for many people. Everything is connected. That's also an important thing because we saw that ocean literacy and data at the end, they are not such separated areas, right? They have many connections, and this multidisciplinary can help us to improve our projects. Fair care and trust, open access principles, transparency is important. Again, the data management plan, I think, was a big insight for all of you. Sharing info, data visualization, fragmented data, importance of sharing, data belongs to all, Sharing is caring. That's also a good insight that we had from this week, right? More than just fair. Yeah, so we saw that it's more than just fair. We have other principles to be applied, but a huge set of behavior change that we need when we deal with data. I will bring our next question because we would like to know from you if you will use what you have learned in this training in your work and your research. Yes, no, or maybe. We want to know if this training was useful for you, also if you will be using this content directly in your work. So I see many yes, some maybe, some people no, but a big part yes, which is very good. Great. Thank you so much for this information as well, because our will is, of course, that you apply the knowledge on your professions and also in your work. And we would like to know from you also what ideas or knowledge from this training you'll be using straight away in your organization or in the university that you are a part. Data management plan. Again, I think this was a big thing that appeared. We need better metadata, data management again, data management plan again, applying fair, trust, and care, metadata, keep up the good work on GIS and data implementation, mapping, storytelling, from data to storytelling, data management plan again. That's very good for citizen science through ecotourism. Trust the ECOP community, right? Because it's a community, so we all need to be more connected as well. Applying careful data management. We saw as well yesterday from Kiet that we are also data caretakers. Mapping and storytelling. Size opportunities and don't be afraid to intervene. That's very good. Thank you so much. And also implementing data, bringing data to policy processes, right? I see we have many interesting insights. I will pass to our next question because we are here with a group of ECOPs, and we know that some of you probably have not received these instructions on how to use the principles. So what is the one thing that you wish that your supervisors or managers had explained it to you or taught you about data? So if you could bring us also what is one thing that you wish you have learned? So how to validate data? Everything. I started with a paper and just Excel. So yes, guidance is important in this process, right? How our data is being managed, where to find the data, importance of metadata, data management plan, creating good data management plan, how to store data better, how to gather and analyze it, real importance of data, how to access open data, permission to share, how to publish, everything, right? Protocol to handle data, guidance. So I see that guidance appeared, right? So you need more guidance on that. So that's why this training has its importance, right? Because we are bringing the principles, but of course for you to bring back to the organization that you work. And, oops, I don't know why that question is not appearing. Sorry, I don't know why this question is not appearing. But probably because I will finalize now because I think there was an error with this last slide. But I will pass now to Juana, who will bring to us a recap of the day and will bring us also what we have learned with the fantastic presentations that we had.
Thank you, Anna. Hope you can hear me well. Okay, so it's been a great 4 days for all of us, I think, as our organizers, but as well to seeing and connecting with the participants in different ways, getting the questions, the comments, and the feedback. So we really wanted to give you this wrap up at the end with the presentations on looking ahead, what is the in the next upcoming years, but also to give you a global perspective. And in our opinion, the speakers have done such a great job creating the scene. And especially we start with this presentation from Adam from the Ocean Decades perspective, as that they have a dedicated office on data sharing, which just reinforce the importance and alignment with this such a practice, and of course to the principles that we have been talking about in this webinar. So, but as well, when we talk about this sharing and the care and the trust and the fair principles, we have a good emphasis from the speakers to approach this on the way that don't forget our end users. And this becomes such a great relevance because it opens a lot for how you can create this impact to the data, that it not only remains, again, inside of one community, but it opens to collaboration. And I think here also Adam triggers as well to change this set of mind, and maybe why not to look to other sectors who may look a bit from a different perspective, like the private sector, but we can also learn from both of us, share feedback between our maybe more scientific sector, but learn as well how to tackle some challenges. And talking about the impact, we had these great presentations on how is going from mapping by the Seabed 2030 Ocean Decade program, but as well as such a big challenges of illegal fishing. And the last but not least, the BBNJ Agreement. So it's showing you how data collection and the translation of this into knowledge creates like a great impact and reinforcement to these global challenges. But you can already create and be this agent of change, just adding and contributing with your data, even from the local perspective where you are. It was great also to hear from the speakers the involvement to two other concepts as capacity development and gender. And as well on the perspective of diversifying, how is the integration, not only on how is the data that has been collected, but also who is involved on this. So it's great to see that data is going beyond that. You also, how we talk about in the different days, it's not only about the collection, but also who is collecting, how we go into the methodologies, how we share this knowledge on how it's been collected. So it's an important aspect on applying the fair, the care, and the trans principles. And I would like to also reinforce this, that our speakers, in one way to another, they all are acknowledge the importance of the early career ocean professionals, how give these inspirational messages that you can be this agent of change, you can be supporting these great and global initiatives that are around there, but you shouldn't feel like this is such a big step, but you can go like from one part to the other and keep contributing in this aspect. So with that, I would like to give the word to Dina and to closing this great webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We still have one question on Mentimeter, which we can maybe still launch.
Yes.
Okay, great. It's there. In one word, what is the impact of marine data? We just want a word cloud here.
So it's the same code that we used previously. We can just come back to the Mentimeter. So we see protection, science, trust, research, underestimated, marine conservation, life knowledge, better life, awareness, trust, it appears many times, protection, earth, transparency, marine conservation, knowledge, well-being, right? Because at the end we are doing this for improving well-being as well. Management, understanding, innovation. We see that justice, improvement, coexisting. We see many different insights and
No doubt here there is a lot of impacts of marine data, so that's why we should take good care of it. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much, Juana, for fantastic recap. Yeah, I guess we can close this training with a few announcements for you. First, we have a post-event survey, which Anna will share now the link to. You can fill it out in order to tell us how you feel about the training, what you liked, what you can use, what every day marked for you as key insights. And you can also ask us through the survey to issue a certificate for you if you attended all the 4 days of the training. So you can, we wait a little bit for you to scan the QR code. What happens next? We will be very happy to receive your results. This will help us have future trainings, future engagements, future celebrations of marine data, ocean literacy and sharing, and caring and trusting. And we will also release the videos of this training on Eurobus YouTube and probably other channels as well, but surely that is where you will first have the release. Once we have circulated the certificates of attendance, so wait about a month or maybe 2-3 weeks to see this training videos released. You will also see on the Eurobus YouTube in the coming days the release of the video that we of the training that we had last month in September on ocean literacy. We developed the training for marine scientists to be better communicators and better ocean literacy advocates, using creative tools, using communication techniques to engage with all sorts of different audiences. It's a great training and you can take a look, and I hope you will enjoy it. You can always refer back to us for any information you may want about the training or resources you have received. But through those videos, normally you will be able to really rewatch and reuse the information as much as you are able to. I think I have actually a thank you slide, but maybe I will not have to share it, or maybe I can, okay. It is just to tell you that truly we thank you all very warmly. It has been a very agreeable 4 days for all of us as organizers. We thank you for active participation, for entering details in Menti in the chat, for giving your reactions on the speakers. It has been a wonderful experience for us all, and we hope to see you all very soon again. And thanks again to Bliss and Flanders government, and obviously my office at Eurobus and Anna Vittoria for the great organization. Thank you so much and see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.